Hi, Daryl. Very nice to see you again.
Yeah.
One of the things about this series was what I've always been interested in when visiting stores and things is actually meeting people and finding out what it's like for them to be a musician. And particularly when you go somewhere, to me, which is quite exotic, it's what it's like to be a musician in that part of the world. The fact that you're in Singapore always sounds very, very exotic to me over in the UK. So thanks very much for joining us and giving us a little bit of an insight into your life in Singapore.
Thanks so much for having me.
No, it's a pleasure, man. It's a pleasure. So, let's kick things off a little bit. So, whereabouts in Singapore are you?
Well, Singapore is really, really small. I live like in the northeast. Yeah, but it's so small that actually it doesn't really matter that much where you live in the country, to be honest.
Were you born in Singapore?
Born and raised here. I've never actually lived anywhere else. Yeah, but I'm fortunate to have traveled a fair bit, I think.
So let's talk a little bit about what it was like growing up in Singapore. And what led you on the path that you're on now in terms of being a musician. What was the first thing that you saw or heard that made you want to play guitar and be a musician?
But I remember I was at a friend's place and there was an MTV video of Alter Bridge and it was Mark Tremonti on guitar. And I think the song was Open Your Eyes and he took this crazy solo. And at that moment, I was like, okay, I think I want to try to play guitar. But it wasn't until a couple of years later that I actually started playing. But I remember that moment quite clearly. I was about 12, I think. Yeah.
So I guess you started on playing guitar? That was your first instrument?
Yeah. So I started playing guitar. I wanted to play drums, but in Singapore, we mostly live in like high-rise apartment style buildings. So having a drum kit, especially an acoustic kit, is most parents would not want that for their child. So instead of drums, I think a guitar or piano is probably a more traditional route. Yeah.
So does that mean there's a shortage of drummers in Singapore when you want to play?
Oh no, absolutely not. We have a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of great drummers coming out of here. I don't know how they practice, but somehow they found a way.
So it's all electronic kits and...
Well, I guess from what I know now, some people actually rent spaces in industrial buildings. So they kind of share it with other drummers. So they go there to practice or work on their material or record, So, in an industrial space, it's fine. It's not, no one lives there anyway, so...
So what was your first guitar? Did you start off on acoustic guitar or on electric?
I started off on acoustic guitar. It was a really beat up Washburn. The action was really, really high and it looked really bad actually. But
and did you get guitar lessons early when you started?
So at the time we were students, so we didn't have that much money. I did a 3-person class with 2 of my other friends who also wanted to take lessons. And we also bought guitar techniques and we passed it around. Yeah, it was a way of kind of saving money but learning at the same time. The first few things I really tried to learn guitar were more, at the time was John Mayer, Continuum, John Frusciante with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and pop punk, I guess, was very popular when I was growing up. So bands like Third Eye Blind or basically the style of guitar which is a little bit more rhythmic and it didn't have a lot of shreddy solo bits. I guess that was what got me into playing. And also I think the music, that kind of music still resonates with me the most now because I grew up with it.
So who was your biggest guitar influence now, would you say?
Now, it is a few people, but I think I've been trying to transcribe some Matteo Mancuso licks at 75% of the speed on YouTube. Yeah. So, the way he phrases is just unbelievable. So I've been trying to, copy a little bit of that and trying to somehow apply it into what I do. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't really fit, but...
So did you have, because you're talking about some quite serious knowledge that's required for that sort of playing. Did you go to university or college doing music?
No, actually I didn't. I wanted to. I did have the opportunity to kind of participate in some programs, free programs organized in Singapore. Something called Bright Young Things, which is like a jazz 10-week program, and it's for free. All you have to do is pass the audition. So I went for a couple of those, and they had really good mentors and all. So I wouldn't say I'm self-taught, but I did get some lessons and some teaching from very established and very good players, I guess. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Line 6. You work as a demonstrator and product specialist for Line 6 in the Asia Pacific. You must do a lot of travel with that, because that's a lot of the world. So which countries do you visit doing like Line 6 work?
So before the pandemic, I went to Malaysia, Indonesia, which are very near Singapore, by the way. And I had the opportunity to kind of do a India tour, which was really one of my favorite trips, to be honest. Went to Japan, also did Thailand, and was supposed to do Vietnam and Middle East, but then the pandemic happened.
So do you have to speak many different languages to do this?
No, actually. In Malaysia, which was where actually the bulk of my trips were to Malaysia, because it's just next door to us. They speak English also, and Mandarin if they're Chinese. So sometimes I would add a bit of that. But for the other places in India, they speak English to varying degrees, and the rest of it was mostly in English. But try to read the room and adjust accordingly. Yeah.
So I guess in Singapore, with what you were saying about drummers earlier, the idea of being able to DI things and plugs, just carry something like a Helix, that must be a big bonus, not to have to need a guitar amp and stuff these days.
Oh yes, that is what I tell everyone as often as I can, because actually the venues that we have over here largely don't have amplifiers, and they just, as a guitar player, you just go there. If you can just plug straight into the the PA, the sound guy or the stage mons guy is gonna have a much better time. You can set up in, I don't know, like a minute. And I've heard of some places even insisting that guitarists have their own modelers and not use an amp for stage sound, because that's kind of drastic, but sometimes it affects the singer. Basically, if you're blasting an amp on stage, the singer's going to complain that he can't hear him or herself, So some places even rather the guitarist use modelers. Yeah.
So is it always easy to go out and see live music?
Live music was kind of banned for 2 years of the pandemic. Yeah, our government was quite strict on that. So recently it came back, maybe the last 3 months, 3-4 months, and it's been booming again. Yeah, there's gigs everywhere, festivals on the weekend, people doing events, the bars all have bands. Yeah, it's really nice to see, actually. So it's really easy to, as of now, like if you go out at night, it's really easy to bump or chance into a band playing something somewhere. Yeah.
Now, assuming that one day that I do get to come out there, where's a good place for somebody like me to go and see some, cool local bands? Somebody who's into rock music and rock or funk music, that kind of thing.
Wow. Okay. So there was a place called Crazy Elephant, which was like the home of blues and rock in Singapore, I guess. I think they're recently relocating, but it was there for 20 something years, like since the 90s. Before that, of course, there are some jazz clubs. We have a jazz club called Maduro that features different people every weekend. And then, of course, if it's like top 40 or anything, we have this area called Clarke Quay, which is kind of a nightlife center, basically. So it's hard to describe. It's like a whole area where there's tons of bars and clubs and everything, and there's so many bands, so many different kinds of music. You have your Mando pop, you have people playing English top 40. You have acoustic duos and everything. So it's all centered in Clarke Quay or city area.
Now, another thing I really miss with not traveling so much is just being able to visit guitar stores. Singapore must have some amazing guitar stores. So where's the place for me or anybody who's watching this to come out and see a whole range of cool guitars in Singapore?
Okay, so in Singapore there is a place called Peninsula Shopping Center, which is at City Hall, which is right smack in the middle of the city. It's a really old building, and it's a basement where you have a ton of guitar stores. It's a really low ceiling basement kind of place, and you have stores like Davis and City Music. Basically, there's at least 10 to 20 guitar stores in that basement alone, and it's not a big area. It's actually really tiny. So I think most players in Singapore, if they needed something, you can't go wrong by going there. Like that whole basement area, no matter what store you go to, you're probably going to find the thing that you're looking for. Yeah.
They sound amazing, Daryl. I hope I get to visit those stores. Moving on from that, you still play quite a bit as well, don't you? I was looking at your website yesterday, and you're doing quite a lot of you're doing sessions and recording from bits of TV things and games. But I see that you're also playing with a jazz sort of trio as well.
That trio is kind of a weird instrumentation. It's just a double bass, myself on guitar and a violin player, and it is it's not a conventional kind of trio that you see. We try and we each come up with some originals, and then we bring the chart to the gig and we kind of flesh it out. And yeah, and that's more of because we're all friends, so it's kind of more fun. It's just three friends bouncing off each other in terms of musical ideas and stuff. Yeah. So.
And you're not playing with any rock bands or anything, or so that's your thing at the moment, isn't it?
I mostly play as like a session guitar player for singers and artists and all that. So in Singapore, it's a majority like ethnic Chinese country. So a lot of Mandarin music is really popular, and we have quite a bit of local singers and singers from overseas or anything. And they need people to play their music for them and be their band. So mostly that's what I do actually. Yeah.
Right. So what is Mandarin music? How would you describe that?
It's called Mando pop or C-pop. Actually, it's really Western influenced in some degree, but it has its own little nuances. For example, I think Mandarin as a language has kind of longer, longer sounds in terms of compared to English. I mean, there's a lot more ballads and there's a lot more, I'm not sure if it's because the words generally, they have a longer sound when it's sung, but
Interesting.
it's not too different. It's not super weird. Yeah, it's actually quite Western influenced to
I think the words thing is interesting. The idea that the length of the words could have an effect on how they write their songs. That's an interesting thing that I've never thought about before.
I mean, Singapore is quite a young country. I think it's only like 50 plus years old, and like it's quite a melting pot. Like we're ethnically like mostly Chinese, Indian, and Malay, and then but we're also quite into Western culture. So the music that comes out is kind of a blend in between like Western influences and of course in the ethnic Malay music or ethnic Chinese music, they have certain instruments like the guzheng or the erhu, where it features a lot in Mando pop and everything. So there's kind of a blend.
Yeah. So are there any artists that we should check out that's worth sort of a quick sort of YouTube search?
So there's really a lot of different music. If you want the really famous artists from Singapore, I mean JJ Lin and Stephanie Sun, you can find them easily on Spotify. They're really famous throughout the Chinese speaking world. That includes China and Taiwan and Malaysia. In terms of the scene here, there's actually a lot of different pockets in the sense that there's an indie scene where they do like English indie, and that is a whole thriving thing by itself. There's a jazz circle where they do like jazz fusion kind of originals, and then there's a singer-songwriter group where they release songwriting stuff. Yeah.
So let's just go a little bit back to Helix now. So do you have any presets that you could share with us?
When I perform, I mostly just use two presets. Yeah. So one is sort of like a clean crunch. I have the delays that I need and a overdrive which is not too heavy. I use that one preset for many whole concerts before because there weren't any heavy song.
So which amp model do you use for clean?
I think it was the Jazz Rivet. Yeah.
And then what amp models do you use for your crunch sound? Do you have a different amplifier for that?
Yeah. So if I need to play like rock or heavier stuff, basically I have a second preset for that. I like all the Bogner style kind of amp models for the heavy sounds. Yeah, to me it's really crushing. On that preset, I have like 3 different delays and 2 different reverbs, and I switch around according to the song. Yeah, so I would love to share that one. Yeah,
great. If you could share, I mean, we'll put a link underneath the video, and it would be great for really interesting to see how you're doing your gigs with that. I mean, for anybody who wants to check out your music, do you have links and things that we can share, and we'll put them, people can go and check out, because you've got a YouTube channel and you got your website and stuff, so we'll put those links under the video as well.
Okay.
But I think for now, Daryl, I think that's great, man. I really appreciate that little guide to Singapore, because it's somewhere I just don't know. I know very little about, apart from I really want, I see images of it and I really want to go. And
if you ever come there, just hit me up. Yeah, I'll show you around for sure. Yeah.
Brilliant. Oh no, I definitely will. Well, thank you so much for your time, Daryl. I really, really appreciate that, and I'll look forward to seeing you in person at some point in the future, probably in the States again. But for now, thank you very much. All right.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Cheers, Daryl.